Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Kitty Pryde. We'll start off this list with one of the more wild X-Men adventures. It's kind of a pregnancy, but kind of not. Hear me out. We go back now to Wolverine and the X-Men issue 4, where Kitty is surprised. She has a pregnancy scare, only she's 8 months pregnant out of the blue. Well, she thought that she was pregnant when it was actually these brood drones that were attacking her from inside of her body. So the X-Men fought back, of course, but this time they were fighting at a microscopic level. They shrank down really small to get a closer look, and they fought these brood drones inside of her. It was crazy. Now at this time, Kitty was leading the Jean Grey school, and while the team was fighting in her body, Kitty had to fight off an adult brood while they invaded the school. Now thankfully, Kitty was injected with Centaurian penicillin after the battle was done, and she didn't have any more pregnancy scares with any drones or anything happening like that. So that was a one and done, thankfully. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, it really does help our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thanks so much. Now let's get right back into the list. Number 9, Wanda Maximoff. This pregnancy comes from Earth 2182. Now you may be thinking of a different pregnancy involving the Scarlet Witch, which I'll get into a little later on. But in this universe, she gives birth to a daughter named Nocturne. And the father here is, well, you could probably guess by looking at them, Nightcrawler. She got her dad's looks, unfortunately, and Nocturne came to life in Marvel Comics with X-Men Millennial Visions, issue 1. She, of course, possesses the powers of both her parents, and it's quite the spectacle. She can blast off energy bolts just like her mother, and she can climb walls like her father. But what makes her even more powerful than her parents is that she also has the ability to possess others for 12 hours. Once that timer is done, the victim is just down for the count for the entire day. Talk about the hangover of a lifetime. Number 8, Mystique. This next one's kind of funky. Okay, so this kid was born and almost became president, basically. Yeah, so Mystique and Sabretooth, two iconic X-Men characters, had a son named Graydon Creed, which sounds evil right off the bat. But basically at this time, Mystique was posing as a spy, and she seduced Victor while he was in Germany on a mission. So when Mystique gave birth to Graydon Creed, he didn't have superpowers or anything like that. No, instead he was given up for adoption, where Mystique would then keep an eye on him from afar. Now, it wasn't until he found out who his true parents were that he learned that he'd been abandoned until he started to become a villain and despise the mutant community. Rightfully so. I mean, you got a fair point. Growing up to form a group called the Friends of Humanity, which isn't as friendly as it sounds. In fact, it was for opposing mutant civil rights. So quite the opposite. Opposing them, of course, by causing violent attacks. So he ended up running for president in X Factor, because that's what bad people do apparently now. And in issue 130, we see him taken out by a future version of Mystique. Told you, time is tricky in these comics. She takes him out because Graydon was responsible for the death of Trevor Chase, the grandson of Destiny in the future. So yeah, some of these pregnancies are a little bit more stressful than others. Number 7, Emma Frost. This alternate reality introduces us to Ruby Summers, the daughter of Emma Frost and Cyclops. Her first appearance was in X Factor Special Layla Miller issue 1. So meet Ruby Summers. She lives in that same cruel future where Bishop was born. Now this Sentinel-controlled nightmare of a reality is not an ideal place to live. So there and her much older father ran the Summer Rebellion, where humans and mutants came together to make a stand. Now Emma's never seen in the comic because, well, she wasn't alive when the story began, but Emma was still being talked about and missed dearly by Cyclops. He's just sitting on a bench looking out at the water, all sad and Cyclops-like. Number 6, Wanda Maximoff again. One of the biggest turning points for Wanda in the MCU is of course during the events of WandaVision. See, just like the comics, Wanda gives birth to two twins, Billy and Tommy. And as we saw in the show, the kids were just created using Wanda's magic, and they were also left behind, as well as a life that she had created post-Endgame, including Vision. But what does this mean now for Wanda? Will she be okay? It kind of feels like she just lost Vision again, this time with children in a house. It kind of feels worse than the first time around, maybe. So the loss of her kids is actually what caused the events of the House of M to unfold in the comics. And with Wanda reading up on chaos magic with the Book of the Damned at the end of that show, and we hear her kids calling out to her right before the screen cuts to black, perhaps she's not completely done with them yet. Billy, aka Wiccan, gained the abilities of magic like his mother, and Tommy, aka Speed, has, well, super speed like her brother Quicksilver. Number 5, Madeline Pryor. She made her first debut in Uncanny X-Men issue 168, and since her first arrival to comics, she bared a striking resemblance to Jean Grey, who had passed on at this time in the comics. Now, everybody thought she was just Jean Grey reborn, and to make things more fishy, Madeline's mind was closed off to Professor X, and she was the only survivor of a plane crash that went down when the Dark Phoenix just happened to disappear on the moon. Coincidence? Maybe not. No. So what ended up happening was that she was a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister. See, Mr. Sinister's plan was for Madeline and Scott Summers to have a child, and then they could use that child to defeat Apocalypse. And that child was, of course, Nathan Summers, aka Cable. Number 4, Mystique. Again, when you have a child, at least in the Marvel Universe, those powers are not only passed on, but usually they're stronger than before because that's just how fun comic books work. This was the case on Earth 13729 when Mystique gave birth to Raze, with the father being Wolverine. Sounds like the dream team. Imagine being born with just one of those parents' abilities, you'd be set. But luckily, Raze was born with both. Well, not really luckily, unfortunately rather. Yeah, Raze grew up resenting his mother, and eventually his hatred came full circle when he took her out and then replaced her without anybody knowing. Yeah, super kids can be super evil as well, you never know. Raze's shape-shifting powers are stronger than his mother's, and he clearly has some aggression issues just like his dad. In X-Men No More Humans, Raze had this ultimate plan where he was going to remove the human population from Earth, and then now instead bring in mutants from other multiverses to make this massive mutant paradise, this big water park full of mutants. Some of these alternate offsprings are just a nightmare. Oh my god. Number 3, Rogue. We now take a look into 2005's X-Men The End. And in issue 5, Rogue, aka Anna Marie, got married and had children with Gambit. And they're a fan favorite when it comes to couples in the X-Men universe. And readers were delighted when they met Rebecca and Oliver LeBeau. Rebecca, nicknamed Ray, is the youngest, and she's the thief just like her dad, and she even carries a staff as well. But she also has the ability to fly, and super strength allows her to pack quite the punch. Oliver, he's great, the kid's awesome. He's older, he has quite the temper, and he loves to fight, and he just happens to be a skilled martial artist and often trains with his father. He has his mother's ability of absorbing powers, only his is of course even stronger. So he's permanently absorbed telepathy, and he's actually not a fan of it. He kind of hates it, which, fair. If I had telepathy, I probably wouldn't like it as much as I thought. Number 2, Mystique. Again. During the Battle of the Atom story, we were introduced to Charles Xavier II. This happened when Mystique was disguised as Moira McTaggart, and he was given up at birth, and when his powers developed, he accidentally took out his new mom. Oops. But when he tracked down Mystique, that was the time I mentioned earlier, with Raze taking the spot of Mystique. So the two were actually half brothers. How neat is that? They both ended up joining forces come All New X-Men issue 27. Xavier 2 was so powerful, he actually took over the minds of current X-Men members and recruited them to his own brotherhood. He was the worst. He controlled them like puppets. He gave them just enough brain activity to know what was happening to them, but not enough to fight it. What a damn nightmare. And finally, number 1, Storm. If you think that alternate reality of Earth 13729 is bad, with all those evil little offspring joining forces, wait until I tell you about Storm's child. Meet Chimera, also making her first debut in X-Men issue 36, Battle of the Atom. She's with the good guys this time. That's why I wanted to end with this one. She's from the same world as Xavier 2, but she's on the good side. Thankfully. Chimera is the daughter of Storm, so she obtains the ability, of course, to manipulate the weather, and she too can make it rain. She can also influence animal behaviors psionically. That plus her super sense of smell allows her to track just about anybody. It's about time we get someone on the good team in this mad world. Well guys, there you have it. Which of these X-Men offspring are your favorite? I'm a big fan of Nocturne. I'd actually love those powers. Those would be great. Kicking off the list at number 10. Miss Marvel. So back in the 80s, Marvel had this storyline where Miss Marvel got pregnant from Marcus Immortus. Now, it wasn't a fan favorite by any means because this wasn't a consensual relationship. And when Carol was going through this pregnancy, the Avengers were just like, hey, congrats, we're not gonna ask any questions, go team. Yeah, this is a horrible event in comics in every way. So in Avengers 197, the issue has right on the front cover, Miss Marvel's shocking surprise. And then after her and Wanda have a heart-to-heart about Wanda wanting to have kids, Carol suddenly gets really sick, and in the last few pages of that issue, it's revealed she's somehow pregnant, 3 months pregnant. Then the next day, 6 months pregnant. So something's going on. Even the doctor is like, well, I have no idea why she's so upset. Nausea and fainting are common symptoms while being pregnant. Like, thanks doc, way to use your ears about the whole situation that I just explained. Good work. And then in Avengers issue 200, her teammates are just as useless and awful about the whole situation yet again. Even Cap acknowledges that Carol insists that she doesn't know who the father is and that there's no way that there even is a father in the first place. Yet the team continues to act normal. They're like, ooh, did I miss it? Oh, he's so cute. Just the worst, the absolute worst. Especially because this happens right after Wanda explains herself wanting children. Like, this whole act of mental and bodily violation is a good thing. So what happened after? Well, as the child grows rapidly, the team acts like she's being the odd one here, but she's just trying to cope with this trauma. So when she goes to visit her son, his name is Marcus and he's already a full-grown adult. So before this, Marcus was trapped in limbo, and in order to get out, he used Carol to give birth to himself so he can finally be free. So after they transport her back to her reality, she gives birth to him, and then he grows up rapidly, goes against the Avengers, loses, and then gets banished back into limbo. Chris Claremont tried to retcon this horrible story with Avengers Annual Issue 10, where it's treated as an act of violation rather than a superhero miracle. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it really does wonders for our channel. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now back to some more pregnancies. Number 9, Susan Storm. Better known as the Invisible Woman, Susan Storm made her debut in comics in Fantastic Four issue 1 back in 1961. So in Fantastic Four Annual issue 3, we see the wedding with her and Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, aka Stretchy Boy, and shortly after a pregnancy was in the picture. So when Sue was pregnant, Crystal of the Inhumans came and took her spot on the team. When the child was on the way, they had to travel to the negative zone and then borrow the cosmic control rod of Annihilus. So not your average C-section this time around. And then out pops Franklin Richards. See, Franklin is quoted from Galactus himself as the most powerful mutant ever. He is a mutant beyond Omega power, he was a member of Gen X, and he's also a future X-Men member in the Ultimate X-Men comics. Some of his powers include vast reality warping, psionic powers, precognitive powers, so his dreams tip him off on what's going to happen in real life. He's just a splendid human being. He can see the future in his dreams also, and he can resurrect the dead, time travel, teleport, astral project, and he can duplicate planets and or people. So not too shabby at all. Number 8, Wanda Maximoff. One of the biggest turning points for Wanda in the MCU is of course during the events of WandaVision, which we all watched, right? Just like the comics, Wanda gives birth to 2 twins, Billy and Tommy. Now as we saw in the show, these kids were created using Wanda's magic. Now the loss of her sons is what caused the events of House of M to unfold. And with Wanda reading up on chaos magic with the Book of the Damned at the end of WandaVision, we can assume something similar is going to happen on screen in some way. So Billy, aka Wiccan, gained the abilities of magic just like his mother, and Tommy, aka Speed, has, well, super speed, which you probably could have guessed. Just like Wanda's brother, Pietro, aka Quicksilver, aka Ralphie B. So I hope we see more of these super kids in the show because they were so fun to watch. They can't be gone, I refuse to admit it, nor Quicksilver. Number 7, Kiara Oldstrong. He was born to the shadow people of Sakaar, and she was one of the few members of her race that had something called old power. My Uncle Scott also has old power, just raw strength, you know? I shake his hand and I can just feel my knuckles moving around like marbles. But no, this old power is much, much stronger. Sorry, Uncle Scott. See, originally she was saved by the Red King. Well, rather, the Red King stood by and let her village get infected in order to find a shadow with the old power. And it worked, and he found Kiara, imprisoned her, and then he made her his bodyguard. So when the Hulk came around, she was in charge of watching over him during his training. So eventually the two teamed up, took down the Red King, Hulk became the new king of Sakaar, and he even chose Kiara as his wife, instead of her being, you know, a bodyguard and all. And then it didn't take long for her to inform Hulk about a child, a baby. Meet Scar. He made his debut in World War Hulk issue 5 after the Hulk had left the planet. Scar had popped out of a cocoon and he resembled a teenager after just 1 year. Boys drinking his milk. Oh, they grew up so fast. Now, given the fact that he was born on a not so chill planet, he learned to fight to survive. Scar retains the old power as well, so he has the ability to control tectonic energy, so he can summon lava and also tap into energy projection. Number 6, Jessica Jones. It all started 15 years ago. Jessica Jones was attending Midtown High, where she actually shared a few classes with Peter Parker. She actually had a crush on him at one point, but I mean, hey, who didn't? Her father had tickets from Tony Stark, and those tickets were for a family trip to Disney World. On the way home, the family was in a car accident where Jessica was exposed to chemicals and then laid in a coma for months. She was also tragically the only survivor. The chemicals gave her superpowers like strength and durability, and then she began a career as a detective and met Luke Cage at his bar, and the two hit it off. In Alias issue 28, Luke Cage approaches Jessica and he tells her that he has feelings for her, that he's been thinking about her quite a bit actually, more than he was willing to admit himself. Then she responds with, "I'm pregnant," and Luke Cage is indeed the father. So he gives a big smile and says, "Alright then, new chapter." So meet Danny Cage. She is adorable and she has a pretty cool nanny as well, that nanny being Squirrel Girl. Number 5, Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman. She made her first debut in Marvel Spotlight issue 32, and in volume 6 issue 5, Jessica got pregnant through an artificial insemination. And here's the best part, she still fought crime. In a way. She used Ben Urich and the Porcupine to help her investigations while she worked out the #MomLife. So Jerry, her son, was actually born during a Skrull invasion from a hospital in a black hole. I was born in Ajax. Just as cool. Talk about a super birth. So we had the powers too, of course, which are super speed, super strength, the whole package from Jessica. And then Jessica kicked the Skrull's ass while she was waiting to give birth. It's so amazing. So after she had returned, she was finding it difficult to return to the superhero life. All she could think about was little Jerry. So she figured the best thing to do would just be to teach him how to be a hero himself. Number 4. Kitty Pryde. This one is pretty wild, okay? So during Wolverine and the X-Men issue 4, Kitty is shocked at the fact that she is 8 months pregnant, just out of the blue. Well, she thought she was pregnant, really. What actually happened was that her uterus had contained these brood drones that were attacking her from inside her body. So the X-Men fought back magic school bus style and shrank down really small to get a closer look. I would have been Arnold in that situation. I knew I should have stayed home. Boo, Miss Frizzle, I have a tummy ache. It looks far too intense. They're like near the brain too. I want to poke it. I would not want to touch anything brain-like in my life. Yeah, that sounds kind of serial killer-ish. Now at this time, Kitty was the headmistress of the Jean Grey school, and while they were fighting in there, Kitty had to fight off adult brood in real life while they invaded the school. But fear not, as Kitty was injected with Centaurian penicillin after the battle was over in order to get rid of the internal remaining brood problems she had going on. Number 3. WOLFSBANE. Rain Sinclair made her first appearance in Marvel graphic novel issue 4 back in the early 80s. So after WOLFSBANE joined the X-Force, she was taken and brainwashed by the Purifiers. Then she met up with former lover Prince Ramari in X-Force Volume 3 issue 17, and they really reunited when they slept together. And then they were attacked by frost giants, and after the fight WOLFSBANE lost consciousness, but before so she called out to Elixir. Ramari rushed her back to Angel's Eyrie where they met Archangel and Warpath, and then they all went to the X-Men base Utopia. Things weren't so smooth over there as well, as it was being attacked by Selene's undead mutants, and Elixir was in a coma after time traveling. So it's not looking too good of a scenario. WOLFSBANE wasn't doing well health-wise still, so Ramari called Hela the goddess of death. So she has a deal to offer, a soul for a soul. Which life to save? That's the question. So Ramari didn't choose the unborn child, nor WOLFSBANE, but rather he chose Elixir, knowing that Elixir could save them both. When Rain left the X-Men, she intended on rejoining X-Factor when she rediscovered her ex, Richter, in the relationship with Shatterstar. So she told Richter that the baby was his, but then after Dr. Castillo saw they couldn't even examine the embryo with an ultrasound because it couldn't penetrate WOLFSBANE's body, it was clear that Elixir had enhanced her body to ensure the safety of the Asgardian embryo inside, so this clued him in and he realized it is in fact Ramari's child. Plot twist. Number 2. TIGRA. Greer Grant got pregnant during the Secret Invasion storyline, but she had believed that she was in a relationship with Yellow Jacket, but near the climax of the Skrull invasion she found out it was not the true Hank Pym that she was involved with, it was in fact a Skrull. His Skrull replacement, Creedy Knoll, was the father, and then this resulted in TIGRA being a target of Norman Osborn's, who just wanted the child for himself. So it's all bad at this point. The baby was born and it seemed healthy. I mean, it was covered in fur and all, but that's not the crazy part of this scenario, weirdly. Hank Pym was convinced that the child was his and he wanted to raise it, but TIGRA wanted her child to be raised by the Society of Cat People, because anything is better than Norman Osborn in this case. Number 1. QUASAR. This last one is quite memorable, so here we go. So Aisha wanted to have children, but the father had to be genetically perfect. Set that bar nice and high, we love it. Somebody like Adam Warlock, for example, but he rejected the idea, so her next move was to see who was worthy. So she implanted other heroes with reproductive pods to see how they would do, and one of those hosts was QUASAR. He's actually the only one that embraces it. He actually tries not to remove the pod, and he ends up fighting alongside Aisha whilst pregnant against Moondragon and Jack of Hearts, so Aisha removed the pod afterwards. What a test. Kicking off the list at number 10. We have Crystal. Introduced in Fantastic Four issue 45, Crystal, the sister of Medusa, has also had quite the journey when it comes to the game of love. I'll talk about Medusa a little bit later on in this list. So in Fantastic Four issue 45, Johnny Storm and Crystal meet and they hit it off, naturally being Johnny saw her and then immediately thought that she was something out of a fairy tale. How cute. Oh, we love to hear about it. So sweet. And then a few pages later, he runs into her again, but this time they show each other their powers, and that makes them instantly bond. Now at this time, the Fantastic Four needed a replacement temporarily while Sue was recovering from having her first child, which if you didn't see part 1 of this list, I explained more of that in part 1, so go check out that after you're done. So this Inhuman Crystal was looking to fill that spot. Now Johnny and her were close, and they dated after this. And Crystal was front cover by time Fantastic Four issue 81 rolled around. And then in Avengers 104, after a battle with a Sentinel, Quicksilver is hurt. So Crystal brought him back to Adeland to heal him, and while they were there, the two of them ended up getting pretty close, maybe a little bit too close because she fell in love with Pietro at this moment. So Crystal eventually ended up giving birth to her daughter Luna, who did not have any powers. Imagine that, eh? Sorry Johnny, apparently you're not hot enough this time. And before we go on with this list, guys, if you could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, smack that like button, that would be great. It helps our studio out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Now back to some more pregnant superheroes. Number 9, PATTON Parnell. Featuring Uncle Ted, the girl next door, and spiders. Okay, this sounds like one wild comic right off the bat. We have the Edge of Spider-Verse issue 4. We meet PATTON Parnell, a disturbed young man who lived with his Uncle Ted. Now his Uncle Ted was not a pleasant guy to live with at all. One day PATTON went on a field trip to Alcorp Industries where he talked to his next door neighbor, Sarah Jane. Now Sarah asked him if he was down to help her expose the company's illegal experiments, and he was like, yeah, hell yeah, that's what we're here for. Let's do it. Let's expose some shady shit. So they went to free the animal test subjects, and then that's when the spiders part comes into play. Ooh, I'm getting gross thinking about it. So this giant red spider bit PATTON, and then the next day he woke up with the munchies. The dude straight up ate a mouse, and then he ate a cat. And then when Uncle Ted came around, PATTON had turned into a literal Spider-Man. A monster version of Spider-Man. I mean, once Sarah came around, PATTON bit her in the neck, and then he transformed into the Spider Monster. But wait, it gets worse. Haha, nice. This spider that bit PATTON laid eggs inside of him during the bite. So he learned he could do the same, and then he tested it out on his uncle and a young boy in the neighborhood, and then finally Sarah. So Sarah left after she got bit, obviously in a panic, but the next morning she was a mother to hundreds of baby spiders that were coming out of her neck. Number 8, Eve Backian. Making her first debut in Guardians of the Galaxy issue 147, Eve Backian was a member of the Nova Corps whose expeditionary force was sent to find potential sites for new outposts. And she did this all while being pregnant. See, usually we meet a character and then they get pregnant and then they have to pull back on the superhero game, at least in some way, shape, or form. But with Eve, we see her fly into the pages and immediately she starts kicking ass. It throws Star-Lord off too. He's like, stand down, that's Richard Rider and I'm pregnant. No, you're pregnant. You're pregnant. What? What's going on? A pregnant lady comes in and squashes the beef. That's superhero stuff. That's what we're talking about. Number 7, the Wasp. In Uncanny Avengers issue 13, Janet Van Dyne is stranded on Planet X with other X-Men members. She was stuck there for years, and when you spend that much time with a hunk like Alex Summers, I mean, feelings are bound to grow, right? Wasp, being the last human alive, had a child named Katie with Alex. See, Katie was around in comics, but not for long. This child did not survive due to the erasure of Planet X. Only her memory made the cut. Now, some of these X-Men missions, especially the ones that involve time travel like this, are just absolutely heartbreaking. Just like that, you'll never see her again. Number 6, Jennifer Walters, Old Man Logan. Guys, sometimes superheroes having kids can be just a nightmare situation. Like in the Old Man Logan storyline, for example, we get to see another version of Jennifer Walters. Now, Jennifer is Bruce Banner's cousin. Yes, I said cousin. Yes, this video is about pregnancies, and yes, I'm saying what you think I'm saying. The world is much different in this storyline. It's cruel, dark, dusty, and dirty. So Banner and Walters, due to their similarly enhanced bodies, the only way they can reproduce is with each other. Yoink, Scoobs, that is one we don't want to think of too much. But because Bruce and Jen were first cousins, these kids turn into little nightmares referred to as Hulk Gang. Now the Hulk Gang is just, what a load of fun. See, what they would do is they would go around town and fight people who weren't paying their rent. The coolest landlords ever. Now, if this was a Disney Plus show, I'd watch 3 seasons of this in one sitting. Just mini Hulks demanding rent money, how epic would that be? Number 5, Venom. Venom is a fun character. I'm actually looking forward to the Venom sequel with Woody Harrelson. He's great, he should kill it. It's gonna be a decent time. Now in the comics, Eddie and Venom go through quite a bit together, especially in Venom issue 164. So Eddie wakes up after a nightmare, but it's so vivid that he believes it was Venom's nightmare, not even his. It's almost like he was watching it like a movie. He even throws up right after he wakes up, which he usually doesn't do. Interesting. They brush it off and they get some air, but then later on in the comic, they're battling Shocker and Venom just leaves, like mid-fight. He's like, well, got a blast, see ya. And he says before he leaves though, he must go, he must keep safe. What is he referring to? Interesting. So they run into Claire Dixon, where she captures Eddie and explains that the symbiote is pregnant. And she also mentioned that the FBI had recruited Matt Gargan as the new host. Surprise, even more demon spawn is on the way. Lovely, we look forward to it. Number 4, Mystique. This next one's pretty wild. Okay, so this offspring almost became president. Yeah, you heard me, it was a whole thing. So Mystique and Sabretooth, 2 iconic X-Men characters, had a son named Graydon Creed. Sounds evil right off the bat, if you ask me. So Mystique at this point was posing as a spy, and then she seduced Victor while he was in Germany on a mission. Now, when Mystique gave birth to Graydon Creed, he didn't have superpowers. He didn't fight people for rent money. Instead, he was given up for adoption, where Mystique would keep an eye on him. It wasn't until he found out who his true parents were and the fact that he'd been abandoned until he started to become a villain and despise the mutant community. He grew up to form a group called the Friends of Humanity, which sounds friendly, but in fact, it was for opposing mutant civil rights. Now, opposing them by causing violent attacks, of course, because how else would you do it in comic books? He ended up running for president in X Factor, and in issue 130, we see the end of Graydon Creed, taken out by a future version of Mystique because Graydon was responsible for the death of Trevor Chase, the grandson of her lover Destiny, in the future. So yeah, some of these pregnancies are a little more stressful than others, I'd say. Number 3, Madeline Pryor. She made her first debut in Uncanny X-Men issue 168, and since her first arrival to comics, she bared a striking resemblance to Jean Grey, who had passed on at this time in the comics. Everybody thought that she was Jean reborn, and to make things more fishy, Madeline's mind was closed off to Professor X's, and she was the only survivor of a plane crash that just happened to go down when the Dark Phoenix disappeared on the moon. So what ended up happening was that she was a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister's ultimate plan was for Madeline and Scott Summers to have a child, and then he could use said child to defeat Apocalypse. Nice, we love when babies are used for master plans. Awesome. Number 2, Medusa. She made her first appearance in the Fantastic Four issue 36. Medusa is the firstborn to Inhumans Quaylen and Amber. She's part of the Adelan's royal family, and she got her powers when she was younger, when her parents exposed her to the Terrigen Mist. This process changed her hair up drastically. I mean, her hair turned into these appendages that she got so good at moving her hair around that she could use it to communicate to Black Bolt via sign language. What a sight that would be. Is it a windy day? Nah, Medusa's just filling us in on some hot gossip. She got a little older and a little wiser, and she was the face of the Inhumans and Black Bolt's interpreter. When Adelan was moved to the blue area of the moon, she got married to said Black Bolt. And you already know what this list is, so yes, pregnancy soon followed a few months later. But it wasn't an easy breezy time at all. See, Adelan's genetic council argued that the mating was unfit because Black Bolt's brother, Maximus, was kind of a dick. Yeah, he was not a pleasant guy to be around at all. So Medusa left, Medusa said deuces, and she hid and had her child on Earth in a desert. Motherhood in the superhero life is the opposite of easy, it seems. Wow. And finally, number 1, Thundra. She made her first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 129. Beginning with Hulk Raging Thunder issue 1, we find Lyra Walters, or sometimes referred to as Savage She-Hulk, and she's the daughter of Thundra and our Earth's Hulk. Yeah, so she's from Earth 8009 in the 23rd century, and at that time the Earth was split into different factions. So there was the guys faction, who were like these warriors, you know, they look up to past warriors. Then the women came together under the United Sisterhood Republic. They were outmanned, literally. So Thundra got sent to Earth 616, our Earth, where she met our Hulk, and then had a baby, Lyra. Now that baby is quite interesting as well, because the thing about Lyra is she actually gets stronger when she's calm, and she's able to tap into gamma sight, which means she can see the flow of gamma radiation. So she becomes a smarter, smoother fighter in this state. If she becomes angry, however, she will actually become weaker. So what do you know? It's flipped. Got a little flippy flip.
Number 10, Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones, aka Jewel, but only for a very brief moment, is low on here, because when she got pregnant she was still a private eye and keeping pretty distant from the superhero community. Jessica Jones debuted in Alias number 1, the first comic for Marvel's then at the time new Marvel Max imprint. She had been a superheroine whose career was cut short after a disastrous encounter with the Purple Man, who after growing tired of her, sent her off to attack the Avengers, with emphasis on Daredevil. The Avengers proceeded to beat her into a coma, just assuming she'd gone full villain, and when she came out of it, she retired from superhero life. Alias is as much about Jessica's recovery as the mystery she is solving in it. She enters a relationship with Scott Lang, but ends up cheating on him with her close friend Luke Cage, and getting pregnant. Once Scott found out, he was upset, and he left her. But Jessica was in a good place. She had faced the Purple Man head on, escaped his control, and not killed him. That was a big deal for her in the comics. It made her feel like she was still a hero and still held justice above vengeance. Also, she was gonna get with Luke Cage, hooray! But yeah, pregnant, and later Squirrel Girl would be her and Luke's nanny. Good times. Number 9. Batgirl. We're talking about Barbara Gordon and the DCAU comic verse, so the DC Animated Universe Extended Comic Universe. Here we have to look at the Batman Beyond continuity, wherein the reader finally gets a glimpse into the falling out between Barbara, Dick, and Bruce. While Dick was away, Bruce and Barbara had, well, a fling. It's implied a bit more than that, but it resulted in her getting pregnant, and in the time frame that there is no way she could pass it off as Dick's. Ultimately, she would actually lose the baby after a particularly tough street fight. It would cause her to miscarry. It's a very grim and gritty plot that not everyone took to. It's very hard to be sympathetic to Bruce in it after it. Like, ugh, this is worse than the rooftop in the animated Killing Joke adaptation, and that's saying a lot. Number 8. Selina Kyle. Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, often skirts the line of anti-hero and thief, but her reforming is a common plot point, and her pregnancy pre-New 52 was part of her path towards trying to be a hero. This was an interesting nod to the past Huntress continuity, where the Huntress had been Bruce and Selina's daughter. The nod is that the baby here is named Helena Kyle, but she's not Batman's daughter. She's Sam Bradley's, but he dies the day Selina finds out that she's pregnant, so Bruce ends up being pretty supportive of this whole affair, but he ultimately helps Selina place Helena up for adoption when she feels that she can't keep her safe because of her life as Catwoman. She would then ask Zatanna to wipe her mind, but Zatanna would say no, which I find hilarious because I mean, Identity Crisis, she was super cool to wipe minds, her friends, but not this time. This is the line. Number 7. Spoiler. Stephanie Brown. Her pregnancy storyline is famous. It occurred in 1998 and was praised for realism and the audacity to tackle such a topic in comics. This happened in Robin's comic series, the Robin in question being Tim Drake. At this point, Spoiler was an accepted vigilante in Gotham, but not on good enough terms with the Bat family to be in the inner circle, despite dating Tim. She would find out that she was pregnant with her ex-boyfriend's baby, and he was no longer in town. Despite not revealing himself, Tim would support her using an alias by taking her to Lamaze classes and the like. Stephanie decided to carry the child to term and give them up for adoption, somewhere hopefully away from Gotham for a better life. Intense stuff, people. The 90s weren't all shoulder guns and pouches. Number 6. Power Girl. So this was a plot that has slipped under the radar for some, also coming to us from the 90s, but not as well handled or poignant as Spoilers. Here we have Power Girl, who would be shown hooking up with Parallax, White, Reed Richards hair streaks Hal Jordan, and 2 issues later suddenly be in full-blown pregnancy symptoms, you know, the ones that happen in media. Dizzy, nauseous, food smells. And then all of a sudden she would blurt out mid-flight in a panel that definitely would have been memed if it had come out today, "I think I'm pregnant." You know, there's a reason people don't go around yelling this. There are many causes for nausea and dizziness, and you wouldn't yell those out. "I think I have the flu." So is Hal the father? No. This is one of those immaculate conceptions, and oh man, this plot goes places. Like then she's all, "I'm not pregnant," but that version of her was a robot, and the real version was pregnant. Then Hal was convinced she was lying to him about not being the dad, and so she punched him in the face, and he was all, "Let me be a dad," and she was all, "No, this is a virginal conception." Also, then her baby had powers from within the womb, so she could still kind of keep fighting. She ended up being sidelined during 0 Hour, but okay, who was the dad? It was Arion, and he impregnated her without her consent, so she would give birth to a perfect being. In what way is that better than it being Hal's? The baby would become Equinox, and where is he now? MIA. Number 5. Tigra. Tigra would find herself pregnant during the Initiative storyline when she entered into a relationship with Yellow Jacket Hank Pym. But she would discover she was pregnant after the Skrull invasion, where Hank had been revealed to be a Skrull. So she had to wonder, was it his baby or a Skrull baby? I mean, maybe it would be better if it was a Skrull baby. Hank has a lot of issues. Tigra initially decided that she was going to abort the baby either way, but her cat-like physiology would allow her to carry the baby to term in 2 months. And so she would give birth to said cat baby, and the Skrull was the real father, by the way. I feel like Maury, this may be my favorite video. I have no idea what that says about me. The baby was named William, and Tigra was initially very lukewarm about his entire existence. Also, since it's a Skrull baby, genetically it was still Hank's anyway, because that's the level of copying we're talking about here, people. She would warm up to William eventually. I mean, look at the little cat baby. And he would mature faster than your average baby as well. Number 4. QUASAR. Yes, QUASAR got pregnant, and he had a dramatic cover which said, "Mama never said there'd be days like this." which is a reference to a song which is from 1961. So it would already have been a bit out of date and left field as a reference when this came out, which was 1991. So QUASAR was impregnated by her, or Aisha, if we have to name her. She wanted to have perfect babies with him, or just someone. Really, she wanted to have babies with him, the him being Adam Warlock, but he was not down. So she was like, fine, I'll just inject heroes with my reproductive pods to see who's worthy. Not okay, people. Not okay. People and entities and forces need to stop doing this. It's not a good look. Of all the heroes she would forcefully inseminate, QUASAR is the only one who doesn't try to forcibly remove it, and it's kind of just like, okay, and keeps on fighting for her and everything. This was largely played for comedy, which I don't know, is that better or worse than just not knowing why it's squicky? Having your body violated against your consent. Hilarious. But he got the same homage Demi Moore cover as the She-Hulk did, so worth it? Number 3. Spider-Woman Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew's pregnancy was a huge plot point for her. She would continue to fight crime throughout while pregnant, but she would have a special force field belt for her stomach, so it's fine. Sure, Jan. There would be a whole who's the dad question here as well, and the answer is some guy. She would artificially inseminate herself because she wanted to be a mom. This was a shift for her character, as initially she had seemed to imply that she wasn't interested in motherhood. But people change, things happen. Her whole pregnancy would be all about how, yeah, she could do it all, which, okay, yes, nice, mom power. As someone who has been pregnant, even if your pregnancy is amazing, you still can't do it all. And that's not a bad thing or a weakness, just a reality. There's another person in there. Her taking time off wouldn't have made her less of a hero, and implying that it would have, well, okay. So after having the baby, she would suffer from separation anxiety and wrestle with going back to being Spider-Woman at all. But then she would decide that she would, so she could be a good example. Number 2, Ms. Marvel. Yes, this is number 2, shock and awe. So this storyline is infamous at this point. Miss Marvel would find herself impregnated against her will by her lover, who had altered her mind to make her want him, so rape, so that he could give birth to himself. This occurred in Avengers 200. Now some have come out after all of the hail of criticisms against this comic being like, it's not that bad. But here's the thing, no one in the story reacts normally here. Her teammates are congratulating her, like, what? No, she has no idea how this happened or why, and she's terrified, and they're like, yeah! Also, it's a scary hyper pregnancy, and then the baby hyper ages and becomes her lover, and then she goes off with him and they accept it. And yet, no one questions her about it. This is probably just writer oversight, like no one thought about the implications because perhaps they were outside of their viewpoints or own experiences, which doesn't have to be an issue, but can be if the writer doesn't even think to acknowledge it. So later, she would come back and yell at the team after fan backlash. Some were like, see, it's fine. But this was a retcon only after people complained. Her being mind controlled to give birth to the man who raped her. Totally fine. Number 1, the Invisible Woman. Yes, she's over Miss Marvel. Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, would be the first woman to become a mom and superhero in comics, so an iconic pregnancy. She would take a break and then come back, like life. Her second pregnancy would be very dramatic, however. In fact, the first time it would not come to fruition and the baby would die because of Sue's exposure to radiation in the negative zone. It was a really sad plotline, in fact, for some fans, too sad, and it would be retconned very convolutedly, so get excited. This pregnancy would be saved by Franklin Richards and his terrifying godlike powers. He would place the baby in an alternate future timeline, where after encountering a Marvel girl from another timeline where she is the daughter of Sue and Doom, she would be reverted to a baby and replaced in the womb of Sue, but allegedly be the original stillborn baby, who Dr. Doom would then help Sue give birth to and name Valeria, the same name that Marvel Girl had in that alternate timeline. The point is, she would have the baby. Hooray! Sue does it all, but with the realism that at times that means making sacrifices and finding a balance, and that's why she takes the number 1 spot. Number 10, Black Canary. We're starting things off in the Injustice universe. This universe was spawned from the fighting game tie-in comic. So in it, the heroes are divided after Superman begins his dystopian push as he sets up the One Earth regime, a world government, helmed by Superman and those who agree with him, while those who oppose this are set up as part of an underground rebellion. Of the heroes who oppose him, you of course have who you would expect, Batman and also Green Arrow, Batman Light, and Black Canary. Don't yell at me, it's fine, it's true, it's fine. When hanging out in the Arrow Cave, Harley Quinn, who at this point has had a change of heart and is helping Green Arrow by doing things like renaming his Arrow Cave the Quiver, gets into a fight with Black Canary. And the two are fighting quite intensely until Black Canary suddenly doubles over asking for a bucket, because fictional pregnancies are usually far more dramatic than real ones. Fun fact, for a lot of women, if you are experiencing morning sickness which leads to vomiting, which not all women do, it usually happens at the same time each day, so you can kind of plan your life accordingly. It's also not always in the morning. Just life facts for the comic I'll never write, featuring a realistic boring pregnancy. So she gets the bucket, throws up in it, and Harley figures out that she's pregnant, and the two bond over it, for Harley has been pregnant in this universe as well. Harley would go on to babysit their child and be a great friend to their family. Number 9. HAWKGIRL, DCAU. This is an implied pregnancy. Still counts. So in the DC animated universe, HAWKGIRL and Green Lantern John Stewart had a deep relationship. It was a huge part of their arcs. The build up to it took seasons and was a huge final moment, and also the moment when her helmet was taken off and she was revealed to be gorgeous. I've never recovered. However, their love was shattered when she was revealed to be a traitor, a scout for the Thanagarian invasion force. That puts a damper on any relationship, even if she would defect to save her new friends. For some, that just made her a traitor twice over. But her and John still clearly had feelings for each other, and in a Batman Beyond episode, it was hinted that they would have a child. This was also hinted in a time travel episode in Justice League Unlimited. This is because Warhawk of that team in the future was their son, but he didn't reveal anything when he went back in time because he didn't want to mess with it, even if it meant he didn't exist. You see? That's how you time travel. Number 8. Superwoman. Reach. She's super low, pun intended, because well, she is from Earth 3, the crime syndicate Earth, where the heroes are villains, etc. However, they don't see it that way. She would play a pivotal role in the Darkseid War arc, or rather her pregnancy and baby would. So on her Earth, she is with Ultraman, but was also having an affair with Alexander Luthor, the hero of that world. She was also cheating on both of them with Owlman too. So when she first got pregnant, she told Ultraman it was his, but then told Owlman it was his, when really it was Mazza's, who is Alexander Luthor, who has the ability to absorb powers of the people he has killed, such as Billy, or on this Earth, William Batson, hence his name, Mazza's, which is Shazam backwards. So essentially what happened was she gave birth to the new Darkseid. This is because the baby had its father's abilities to absorb power, so it was made to absorb the Omega effect and the anti-life equation. Then she died and was killed. How was this heroic? Well, this would end the war, alongside some coinciding actions. Look, they think they're heroes and they're mauled after them. You're glad you know. Come on. Number 7. Artemis. Kinda. We gotta put it down here because people have been baiting the net with clips for a while. We're gonna be looking at Young Justice for this number. So at the end of season 2 of Young Justice, Wally West was gone, and it was tragic for fans, especially as him and Artemis were a favorite couple. And what with Wally being gone from the New 52, it was all too much for some people. There was even a hashtag for a bit, Justice for Wally. It was an experience. Then Young Justice was cancelled, which was devastating for some fans, as it had ended on a bit of a cliffhanger for certain characters, like Wally. So fans started petitions and made noise, and eventually years later got the series back. Season 3 did finally bring some closure to Wally, but not entirely. However, it did provide a future vision or ideal version of the world for Artemis, and it involved her and Wally together with a baby. She was down to be pregnant with Wally's baby. Stop breaking our hearts, Young Justice. Many people felt a bit more lukewarm about season 3 though. Thoughts and feelings, questions, concerns? Share down below. Number 6. Bumblebee. Speaking of Young Justice, we have a more than fantasy birth here with Karen Beecher aka Bumblebee and Mal or Guardian, for a time anyway. Her and Mal were high school sweethearts who hit a bit of a rough patch when she got really invested in her work and kinda took him for granted for a bit, but they got over it. So when she was pregnant, the series used it to dive into a series of tough questions about whether or not their child would be gifted with a meta gene. So if she would have this gene or not, what would it mean, and did they want her to or not? Both eventualities had pros and cons. Karen would give birth in a snowstorm, only for it to be revealed that their daughter had been born with a hole in her heart, which despite just giving birth, Karen shrinks down to fix herself, all while contemplating the nature of her tech-based abilities versus meta ones. It's an interesting discussion and a deep one, something that Young Justice enjoys doing. Number 5. Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman got pregnant by Superman. It's happened a few times actually in Elseworld or alternate universe continuity stories. We of course have the sequel to The Dark Knight Returns, The Dark Knight Strikes Again. In this we have the now infamously memed panel where her and Clark have sex up in the sky, so hard the earth shakes, and at the end of it Diana announces, "Wow Clark, I'm pregnant again." Quality content. However, there is a less, well, awkward pregnancy in Kingdom, which is the sequel to Kingdom Come, which is a famous Elseworld story featuring an older crop of heroes led by Superman, who have to return to deal with new younger meta heroes who are out of control. At the end of that comic, these two, Superman and Wonder Woman, would get together, and in the sequel comic she would give birth to a son who of course they named Jonathan. That's Clark's go-to name, because in so many continuities his dad is dead, in most of them by accident. There's also this panel of Wonder Woman being terrified terrified of being pregnant by Clark in the New 52, and of course it's been cut out and used in some epic thumbs, maybe even in ours. I don't know, I won't know till later. Living life on the edge. Number 4, Venom. Now you could kind of consider the symbiote pregnant when it spawns, but we're going to be looking at a specific instance. And no, it's not Carnage, a more recent iteration. We're going to be looking instead at Mike Costa's run, which had Eddie Brock become pregnant with Venom's baby. Yes, this was an extremely shippy run. And Donny Cates, who had come in after, hated it and made fun of shippers and is now just super aggressive to fans in general. Sad times at Twitter Hive. Eddie didn't know what was happening at first. Here he was, having weird dreams and of course throwing up, and Venom was all, "Nah, don't worry about it, it's all fine." Venom needed the bond this time to be able to spawn, and once Eddie found out, he was super protective of it. And he was keen to make sure the new symbiote was spawned safely. Now everybody was hunting Eddie down, saying this new child was a threat. I mean, look at all the other symbiotes that have been created because of Venom and then the spawn of Venom. But it all seemed to be for nothing as the symbiote was stillborn. But psych, that wasn't true. It lived and has been growing, kidnapped at first by its host. The true child of Venom was meant to be raised up into a hero. They say true. That's why I kind of said it like there were quotes around it. True. Number 3, the Scarlet Witch. Ah, the tale of the Scarlet Witch's children. As much a canonical one as a tale of how some writers on staff hated her and the Vision together. Now Wanda was married to the Vision, who is a synthezoid. So how did this happen? Magic. Yes, they said it was magic. A magical pregnancy. So we would get to have all those traditional pregnant panels with her and Vision, and also get to have the concept that they were his kids. Now later, these kids would be retconned out of existence, only to be retconned back in. Her being pregnant was a big plot point. The whole relationship was. It was all planned out, and as a result, some on staff just got sick of it, especially if they had only been lukewarm on the idea in the first place. The realization that her children had been a manifestation of her own powers would greatly degrade Wanda's mental state, and she would later have a breakdown of epic proportions, first creating the House of M universe and then nearly wiping out all mutants. Later there would be a Lost Children arc, where Wiccan and Speed would believe themselves to be her lost, displaced children and seek her out. And they were indeed Vision's children. Just why? It didn't have to be like this. Number 2, Donna Troy. Donna Troy, aka Wonder Girl, aka Troya, aka Darkstar, aka Leave Her Origin Alone. At one point she was married to a man named Terry Long. Terry was a married college professor who met and fell in love with Donna, leaving his wife, well, ex-wife, and child for her. Thus would begin a whole Donna balancing being a hero and a normal life arc. Donna would become pregnant quickly, and then a group of Teen Titans would come from the future to kill her baby. This was because he was gonna grow up to become a villain called Lord Chaos. Yup. But Lord Chaos also came back to make sure that his mom gave birth to him, and she did, and named the baby Robert. And at that point the writers seemed to realize, oh no, they'd written themselves into a corner of sorts. So Donna would leave her life as a superhero to raise Robert, but would eventually be lured back in after a series of supervillain attacks. This would drive a wedge between her and her husband, so he would decide to take the baby and leave, and the two would end up getting divorced. But this was another problem. Divorce wasn't that acceptable at the time. A divorced hero? Who could relate to that? Asked the late 80s. And so they fixed it by having him and the baby and the wife all die in a car crash. Isn't that better than her having to deal with the reality many people live of blended families? The 80s thought so. Number 1, ELASTIGIRL. That's right, time to look outside of Marvel and DC to the movie The Incredibles and the awesome hero and mom ELASTIGIRL, who had 3 kids with Mr. Incredible, and who the internet feels is dummy thick. Them thighs, that's what they say. Her and Mr. Incredible met at the height of their superhero careers, and it was only shortly after that that superheroes would be outlawed because of the lawsuits and the payouts they were causing the city. Helen Parr would at first be more accepting of the changes in their lives, settling into suburbia, but she too would feel the lure of their former heroic life, a lure that would be even more pronounced in the Incredibles sequel. While the first film explored her husband's struggles, but still dealt with what she was dealing with too. It's a very honest look at middle age and deciding to accept your life or change it. I don't know, I love The Incredibles. Number 10, Starfire. I know some of you have been yelling, where is Starfire? We're working our way up to it. Today we're going to be looking at the Starfire from the alternate universe situated in Kingdom Come. The same one where Wonder Woman and Superman got together. I saw your puns for that too. I see you. Kingdom Come is of course the 1996 miniseries that dealt with a future crop of heroes needing to be reined in by Superman, after some of them end up getting out of control. In this universe, Starfire and Nightwing ended up staying together and having a child, Nightstar. And I'm sorry to say that the start, she was one of the heroes who was out of control. As many of the villains have been dispatched, a lot of the heroes are just fighting each other, kinda killing time. However, she ends up seeing that they are going too far and there's just a lot of collateral damage, and finds herself swayed by the mindset of the older heroes. But instead of joining Superman, she joins up with her grandfather, Batman, as a member of his new Outsiders team, which is made up of many new generation heroes. Number 9. Golden Age Black Canary. There were some interesting things that happened in between the Golden and Silver Ages, and one of those things is that the Golden Age Black Canary is the mother of the Silver Age one, and they both hailed originally from Earth 2. Earth 2 is the first parallel Earth, the cornerstone of the multiverse. The Flash of Two Worlds is the first story of the multiverse that would establish that this Earth was moving in tandem with the Silver Age, but further forward in time. So heroes had emerged earlier on the Golden Age Earth, as they had in real life. It was a little meta. As a result, this Earth was producing legacy characters, and Black Canary was one Dina Drake Lance, and she fought crime alongside her detective husband, Larry Lance. The two would have a daughter, Dina Laurel Lance, who would join the JSA, and eventually would make her way over to Earth 1, that being the main Earth engaged in the Silver Age. This was to be with Oliver Queen, Green Arrow. These two Earths would cross over enough that some of the characters on them were friends, and in this case, love interests. I mean, would you just leave your Earth for Mr. I was trapped on an island? Let me know down below. Number 8. Crystal and Quicksilver. Crystal is a member of the Inhumans, a princess who, like all Inhumans, developed her abilities after being exposed to the Terrigen Mist. She is the sister of Medusa, queen of the Inhumans, and as a result also has amazing hair. She would end up developing a romance and deep love with Quicksilver, the twin of Wanda Maximoff and former son of Magneto, cause you know, retcons. Horrible retcons. She would be featured alongside him often. In this period in Marvel history, there was a lot of build-up put into the romances, spanning multiple books and years. The editors wanted them to be very firmly established. She would eventually marry Quicksilver and have a daughter with him named Luna. However, their relationship would suffer when she had an affair with Scarlet Witch and Vision's next-door neighbor, some guy named Joe, allegedly because Pietro was mistreating her. But it's okay, this was all mind control. Makes it better? Luna would remain a character and has had plots all her own, like being forcibly exposed to Terrigen Mist. Number 7. Jean Grey. Hopping timelines once more to look at Jean Grey in the Days of Future Past storyline, not Madeline when she had Cable. I know they're clones, but they're different people. Clone rights for all clones. Marvel really needs that. So this all occurs on Earth 811, and Rachel, the daughter of Jean Grey, would be kidnapped and brainwashed, and she would be turned into the Hound, a mutant who hunts down other mutants. As in this future, the Mutant Registration Act had turned dystopian after the assassination of Senator Robert Kelly. Well, more dystopian. For a time, she would remain under Ahab's control, that being the people who kidnapped her, but her psychic power would link her with her victims, which would break the control they had over her. Some interesting things then happened, like her being displaced and sent to the main timeline, where she learned that there her mom was dead, and that her dad was married to someone who looked just like her mom and was having a baby with her. It was all a bit of a shock, because she was like, oh no, I was the firstborn, me, then Nate. Because she's Nate Gray's sister. Number 6. Silk Spectre. Now it's time to look at The Watchmen, the famed superhero deconstruction by Alan Moore, and it has become a must-read for comic and graphic novel fans. Here we have the equivalent of a Golden Age hero in Silk Spectre, a hero in it largely for the glory, the fame, and to further her career goals. Years later, she would settle down and have a child named Lori, who she would manage and push in a very stage mommy style way to become Silk Spectre 2 and carry on her legacy. One of the interesting things here is who Lori's father is. Back in the heyday of superhero teams, her mother had nearly been raped by nihilistic dark antihero The Comedian, but had been saved. However, years later, the two had gotten together consensually at some point, and Lori had been conceived. It's such a fascinating and raw thing, and something that sometimes happens because life is complicated, not black and white. That's one of the great things about The Watchmen, the nuance, and how it treats you as intelligent by giving you the breathing room to decide how you feel about things. It's something that makes it unique. Not many works have the confidence to do that. Just stand there and be like, interpret me. Too many people are worried people will interpret it wrong. Which, I mean, maybe he should have been a little concerned given some of the spin-offs. I see you, HBO. Silk Spectre, superhero, stage mom. Number 5. Kitty Pryde, the Brood. Ah yes, the famous thumbnail for part 2. No, it was not a scene from a long-lost hentai, but rather a plot arc, wherein some X-Men were impregnated by the Brood. In this case, we're looking at Kitty. The Brood are an insectoid species in the Marvel-verse, who must lay their eggs inside hosts to breed, and they love the terror that brings out in their hosts. They're a very sadistic species. As if everything eventually is allowed to follow through gestation, the host will become Brood, aware the whole time the transformation is taking place. So let's talk Kitty. Kitty broke up with Colossus and returned to Charles's dream alongside Wolverine to open up the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Then, 4 issues into Wolverine and the X-Men, she wakes up pregnant. Like, big pregnant, like a sim. However, instead of just blindly congratulating her because they're not the Avengers, the X-Men spring into action, because that's not normal, or okay, and they quickly figure out that this is a brood infestation, and so they are able to halt the transformation and abort the brood egg. It involves a lot of pregnant Kitty running around her underwear. I've seen the fan art, so for those of you who, well, you're welcome. You know who you are. Number 4, Witchblade. So, the Witchblade, Cliff Notes version, is a sentient gauntlet empowered by the forces of light, Angelus, in the universe. It hops from host to host, locked in an eternal battle with the darkness, the embodiment of, well, darkness and nothing, who also travels via host, always male. While the Witchblade is a bit more flexible, before a time they had a male-female thing going on, which resulted in the first host, Sarah Prezi, being impregnated by the darkness's host, Jackie Estacado. This happened while Sarah was in a coma, and he did it to try and sway the balance and influence the Witchblade. The darkness has a weird love-hate relationship with the forces of light, Angelus, yeah. And sometimes it leads to impregnating ladies in comas. Here's the thing, before you go full squick, neither of them knew this at the time. Better? Sarah would give birth to a daughter named Hope, and her life would be saved by the Witchblade when she experienced complications with the pregnancy. Number 3, Rocket from DC. Rocket, the DC version, Rachel, was a sidekick to the character Icon and hailed from a very crime-ridden area. However, shortly after she began her adventures as a superhero, she discovered she was pregnant by her ex-boyfriend. She decided that she would have the baby and give birth to a son, Amistad Augustus Irvin, hence making her a teen mom, and it was handled very tastefully. After a period away, Rachel would return to her adventures as Rocket and find a way to balance both. She's a character who kind of fell by the wayside, but those who remember her do so fondly. Number 2, Adam Eve. Adam Eve comes to us from Robert Kirkman's Invincible comic series. Adam Eve was created to be a weapon, and yet turned out to be a very nice teenage girl and eventually woman, even with her extreme intelligence and powers. After having a crush on the lead hero Invincible for years, the two would eventually get together, and she would find herself pregnant and not be thrilled as Mark, Invincible, was spending so many long periods of time in space. She would eventually have the baby, and while Invincible it's a complicated comic. Kirkman lets the plot go where he wants, so a lot of things will just happen. Parallel dimensions, timeline skips, everything. Sometimes plots are dropped, never to return to or return to years later, but the relationship between Eve and Mark for some is an anchor, and many were happy to see them start a family together. Number 1, Siren and Jamie Madrox. So Jamie Madrox is the Multiple Man, a mutant who can create duplicates of himself, and over the years the nature of these duplicates has been explored. So one night, Jamie split himself into 2, and when he woke up he discovered that he and his dupe, as they are called, had had sex with Siren and Monet separately, and neither was aware that he had split, and thought they had full Jamie. And Jamie didn't remember much because he had gotten blackout drunk. Siren, who most often hangs out with the X-Men, ended up pregnant during this night of passion, and she decides to keep it, and her and Jamie decide to give it a go. And for a while, it all seems okay. She goes into labor, he proposes to her while it's happening, cause timing, what's that? But then things start to go wrong. They need to do an emergency C-section and the baby is blue, not breathing properly. But after drama, a near kidnap plot and everything, it all seems okay. Siren held her baby, named him after her dead father, and then passed him to Jamie. And then it all goes horribly wrong and I'll never recover. The baby started being reabsorbed into his body. He had gotten his facts wrong. He had slept with Monet and his copy had been with Siren, hence the baby was a copy, not real, it was a part of him. And so when he touched it, he reabsorbed it, erasing the baby from existence. As you can imagine, that was a relationship ender.